Los Angeles, California. February 17, 1973. 2:45 p.m. The Grand Olympic Auditorium sits in the heart of downtown, a cathedral of combat sports where legends have been forged and myths have been born. Outside, the afternoon sun beats down on the concrete, but inside, the air is thick with anticipation, sweat, and the metallic tang of adrenaline. 1,500 seats packed shoulder to shoulder. The crowd is a mix of martial artists in their white GIs, street fighters in leather jackets, Hollywood producers in silk shirts, and curious onlookers who've heard whispers of something extraordinary about to unfold. This is no ordinary tournament. This is the International Martial Arts Exhibition, a showcase where masters from different disciplines demonstrate their art, their philosophy, their life's work compressed into minutes of explosive movement. Banners hang from the rafters: karate, judo, taekwondo, boxing, wrestling. But everyone knows why they're really here. One name has been circulating through the martial arts underground for weeks, passed from dojo to dojo like a sacred secret. Bruce Lee. The man who moved like lightning trapped in human form. The man who made Hollywood believe that a Chinese martial artist could be a leading man. The man who, just months ago, released a film that would change action cinema forever. Backstage, Bruce Lee stands in a small dressing room, his back to a mirror fogged with steam from a nearby shower. He's 32 years old, 5 feet 7 inches, 135 pounds of coiled precision. His body is a study in functional anatomy, every muscle visible beneath skin that seems too thin to contain the energy beneath. He wears simple black pants and a white tank top. His hands are wrapped, not for fighting, but for demonstration. He's been asked to show techniques from Jeet Kune Do, his philosophy of combat that rejects rigid forms in favor of directness, simplicity, and personal expression. He closes his eyes and breathes, not meditation exactly, but a centering. A coming home to the body. In the VIP section, elevated and separated from the general crowd by a velvet rope and 10 feet of social distance, a different kind of energy pulses. This section is reserved for sponsors, trainers, and special guests. Among them sits a man whose presence here is unusual. Constantine Cus D'Amato, 55 years old, a boxing trainer whose name is whispered with reverence in gyms from New York to Las Vegas. His face is weathered, his eyes sharp behind thick-framed glasses. He's wearing a dark suit that's seen better days, and beside him sits a boy who doesn't quite fit the refined atmosphere of the VIP section. The boy is 6 years old. His name is Michael Gerard Tyson, but no one calls him that yet. Right now, he's just Mike, a kid from Brownsville, Brooklyn, brought along on this trip because Cus believes in exposing young minds to greatness, even if they can't fully understand it yet. Mike sits on the edge of his seat, his legs swinging because they don't reach the floor. He's wearing pants that are slightly too big and a shirt that's slightly too small. His eyes are wide, taking in the spectacle, the lights, the noise, the sense that something important is happening even if he can't name it. Cus leans down. Watch closely, Mike. What you're about to see is speed. Real speed. Not the kind you see in movies. The kind that ends a fight before it starts. Mike nods, but his attention is already drifting to the cotton candy vendor 3 rows down. The lights dim. A single spotlight cuts through the darkness and lands on the center of the ring. The announcer's voice booms through the speakers, distorted slightly by feedback. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce a man who needs no introduction. Actor, martial artist, philosopher, and the founder of Jeet Kune Do. Please welcome, Bruce Lee. The crowd erupts. It's not polite applause. It's a roar, a wave of sound that crashes against the walls and rolls back on itself. Bruce steps through the curtain and walks to the ring with a calm that seems almost alien given the chaos around him. He doesn't wave. He doesn't smile. He simply moves, each step deliberate, economical, purposeful. He climbs through the ropes and stands in the center of the ring, waiting for the noise to die down. If you're watching this, you're not here by accident. You're someone who understands that real mastery isn't about flash, it's about function. It's not about looking dangerous, it's about being effective. Before we go any further into this story, into this moment that only 23 people truly witnessed, I need you to do something. Subscribe to this channel. Not because I'm asking, but because stories like this, real encounters that challenge everything you think you know about fighting, about ego, about what it means to be truly skilled, these stories disappear. They get buried under myths and exaggerations and Hollywood nonsense. If you want the truth, the real lessons from the masters who walked this earth, then subscribe now. Because what you're about to see in the next few minutes will change the way you think about power, about speed, and about what happens when a child witnesses something his mind isn't ready to understand. Bruce begins his demonstration. He doesn't start with flashy kicks or acrobatic flips. He starts with a question. How many of you believe that the best fighter is the strongest fighter? Hands go up throughout the audience. Bruce nods. Strength matters. But only if it arrives on time. Let me show you what I mean. He calls up a volunteer, a large karate practitioner, easily 220 pounds. Bruce asks him to throw a punch, full power, at his chest. The man hesitates. Bruce insists. The karateka winds up and throws a straight punch with everything he has. Bruce doesn't block. He doesn't slip. He intercepts, his hand meeting the incoming fist at the exact moment of extension, redirecting the force with a subtle wrist rotation. The big man stumbles forward, off balance, and Bruce is behind him, hand on his shoulder, frozen in a position where a strike to the kidney or spine would be effortless. The crowd murmurs. Bruce releases the man and bows. Interception. Timing. Not strength. Up in the VIP section, young Mike Tyson watches with the intensity only a child can muster when something captures their imagination completely. He doesn't understand the mechanics, the philosophy, the years of training required to move like that. But he understands one thing. That man is fast. Faster than anything he's ever seen. Cus D'Amato watches too, but his eyes are different. He's not seeing a demonstration. He's seeing principles. Economy of motion. Centerline theory. The shortest distance between 2 points. He's seeing things that could be integrated, adapted, refined for the boxers he trains. Bruce continues, moving through techniques with partners, showing trapping, showing entries, showing how to collapse distance and create angles. 20 minutes pass like 20 seconds. The audience is hypnotized. And then something shifts. During a brief pause while Bruce takes a sip of water, a murmur starts in the VIP section. It's quiet at first, just a few words exchanged between Cus and another trainer sitting nearby, a man named Tommy Brooks who works with heavyweight prospects out of a gym in South Central. Tommy is a big man, former boxer himself, with hands like cinder blocks and opinions to match. Tommy leans toward Cus, his voice low but carrying in the momentary quiet. It's impressive, I'll give him that. But let's be real. Put him in a ring with a real puncher, someone with knockout power, and all that fancy footwork doesn't mean a thing. One punch. That's all it takes. One clean shot and this whole philosophy goes out the window. Cus doesn't respond immediately. He's used to this kind of talk. The dismissiveness. The certainty that size and power trump everything else. He's spent his entire career proving that good boxing is about more than being big. It's about angles, timing, creating openings, exploiting weaknesses. But Tommy isn't wrong about power. Power matters. Power changes fights. Mike, sitting between them, picks up on the tension. He looks up at Cus, then at Tommy, then back at the ring where Bruce is setting up for another demonstration. In the way that children do, sensing adult conflict like animals sense storms, Mike speaks without thinking. His voice is small but clear. He's fast. But could he beat a boxer? The question hangs in the air. Tommy laughs, a big booming sound. Kid's got a point. Martial arts are great for demonstrations, but boxing? That's real fighting. That's combat. You put this guy across from a heavyweight with a right hand, it's lights out in the first round. Cus still says nothing, but his jaw tightens. He respects Bruce Lee. He's read about him, seen his movies, heard the stories from people who trained with him. There's something real there, something that transcends the Hollywood polish. But he also knows boxing. He knows what happens when a trained puncher connects clean. The murmur spreads. Other people in the VIP section start weighing in, voices rising slightly, debates breaking out about style versus style, discipline versus discipline. It's a conversation as old as combat itself. Striker versus grappler. Speed versus power. Technique versus raw physicality. And in 1973, in a world where Bruce Lee is challenging every assumption about what an Asian man can do in Western entertainment and Western combat sports, these debates carry extra weight. They're not just about fighting. They're about culture, respect, legitimacy. Down in the ring, Bruce finishes his current demonstration and pauses. His hearing is exceptional, trained through years of sensitivity drills, and even over the ambient noise of 1,500 people, he catches fragments of the conversation above. He doesn't hear the words exactly, but he hears the tone. Dismissal. Skepticism. The edge of disrespect. He looks up at the VIP section. His eyes scan the faces. Lands on Cus D'Amato. Recognizes him immediately. Then shifts to the small boy sitting next to him. Something about that image, the legendary boxing trainer and the child, strikes Bruce as significant, though he doesn't know why. Bruce steps to the microphone. Before we continue, I want to address something. I know some of you are thinking, this is great for demonstrations, but what about real fighting? What about boxing? What about a real puncher? The crowd goes quiet. Bruce's voice is calm, measured, but there's an edge to it. I've trained with boxers. I respect boxing deeply. But there's a difference between sport fighting and combat. In the ring, there are rules. Weight classes. Rounds. A referee. In reality, there are none of those things. Let me show you what I mean. He gestures toward the VIP section. Cus D'Amato. I know you're up there. You're a legend in your world, and I have immense respect for that. Would you do me the honor of sending someone down here for a demonstration? Someone who represents what boxing is capable of. The auditorium goes silent. Every eye turns to the VIP section. Cus sits perfectly still, his face unreadable. This is a public challenge, delivered with politeness, but a challenge nonetheless. To refuse would be to concede. To accept is to risk embarrassment. Tommy Brooks stands up before Cus can respond. I'll go. Someone needs to show these people what real power looks like. Cus puts a hand on Tommy's arm. Sit down, Tommy. He didn't ask for you. But Tommy is already moving toward the stairs, adrenaline and ego overriding common sense. Bruce watches Tommy approach. He's a big man, 6'2", 240 pounds. Former light heavyweight, moved up in weight after his career ended, but still carrying the movement patterns of someone who spent years in the ring. Bruce doesn't seem concerned. If anything, he seems more focused. Tommy climbs into the ring. The crowd is electric now, sensing that this has moved beyond demonstration into something else. Something unscripted. Bruce extends his hand. Tommy shakes it, grip firm, assertive. No disrespect, Mr. Lee. But I think the people need to see what happens when martial arts meets boxing power. Bruce nods. I agree. Let's show them. They move to opposite sides of the ring. No gloves. No mouthguards. No referee. Just two men and whatever skills they've brought with them. Bruce stands in his Jeet Kune Do stance, weight slightly forward, lead hand extended, rear hand chambered near his cheek. Tommy shifts into a traditional boxing stance, hands high, elbows tucked, weight on the balls of his feet. Bruce speaks, his voice carrying clearly. Throw your best punch at me. Full power. Anywhere you want. If you connect clean, you win. If you don't, I'll show you why. Tommy doesn't need to be told twice. He's been in hundreds of sparring sessions, dozens of fights. He knows how to close distance, how to set up a power shot. He feints with his jab, testing Bruce's reaction. Bruce doesn't bite. Tommy feints again, then explodes forward, throwing a right hand with every ounce of force his body can generate. It's a beautiful punch, mechanically perfect, powered by legs, hips, shoulders, and arm in sequential coordination. A punch that has ended fights. A punch that would drop most men. For seconds later, Tommy Brooks is on one knee, his right arm twisted behind his back, Bruce Lee's hand applying pressure to his wrist in a position that sends sharp pain shooting up to his shoulder. The auditorium is silent. Completely, utterly silent. No one moves. No one breathes. Up in the VIP section, young Mike Tyson's eyes are wide, his mouth slightly open. He doesn't understand what just happened. The big man threw a punch. And now he's on the ground. And the small man is standing over him, not even breathing hard. Bruce holds the position for 2 seconds longer, then releases Tommy's wrist and steps back, offering his hand to help him up. Tommy takes it, rising slowly, his face a mixture of shock, confusion, and something else. Respect, maybe. Or the beginning of understanding. Bruce speaks quietly, but in the silence of the auditorium, everyone hears. You threw a perfect punch. Technically flawless. But it was aimed at where I was, not where I would be. Speed defeats power when power can't connect. Tommy nods, rubbing his wrist. He doesn't argue. Doesn't make excuses. He simply bows slightly, the instinctive gesture of someone who's just been taught something important, and walks back toward the VIP section. The crowd remains quiet for another moment, and then applause breaks out, scattered at first, then building into something massive. Bruce returns to the microphone. What you just saw wasn't magic. It wasn't supernatural. It was timing, distance management, and understanding of body mechanics. Tommy threw a punch designed to knock out someone standing still. But fighting is not about standing still. It's about adapting, flowing, responding. This is what Jeet Kune Do is about. Not rigid forms, not memorized techniques, but the ability to respond to what is actually happening in front of you, not what you think should happen. He continues his demonstration for another 10 minutes, but the energy has shifted. Everyone is processing what they saw. The upset. The David versus Goliath moment. The small man defeating the big man, not through trickery, but through principle. When the exhibition ends, Bruce exits to a standing ovation. He doesn't linger. He bows, thanks the audience, and disappears through the curtain. Backstage, he towels off the light sweat from his forehead and sits on a bench, alone with his thoughts. He doesn't feel victorious. He feels tired. Tired of having to prove himself. Tired of the skepticism. Tired of the constant testing. But he also knows this is the price of challenging conventions. If you claim your way is better, people will line up to test that claim. And they should. That's how truth is separated from marketing. A knock on the door. Come in, Bruce calls. The door opens, and Cus D'Amato enters, young Mike Tyson trailing behind him, almost hiding behind the older man's legs. Cus removes his hat. Mr. Lee. I wanted to apologize. Tommy spoke out of turn. He's a good man, but pride got the better of him. Bruce waves it off. No apology necessary. He showed courage getting in the ring with me. That's more than most people would do. His eyes drop to the boy. And who's this? Mike steps forward slightly, still shy, but less hidden now. Cus places a hand on the boy's shoulder. This is Mike Tyson. He's 6 years old. I'm working with his family, trying to give him exposure to discipline, training, excellence. I brought him here because I wanted him to see what real skill looks like. Bruce kneels down so he's at eye level with Mike. Did you enjoy the demonstration, Mike? Mike nods, his voice barely a whisper. You're fast. Really fast. Bruce smiles. Fast is good. But you know what's better than being fast? Mike shakes his head. Being calm. When you're calm, you can see everything. You can respond to anything. Speed without calmness is just panic. Power without calmness is just rage. You understand? Mike doesn't fully understand. He's 6. But he nods anyway, sensing that this is important, that this man kneeling in front of him is saying something he'll need later, even if he can't use it now. Cus speaks. He's going to be a boxer. I can see it. He's got the build, the temperament, the hunger. But I want him to understand that boxing isn't just about hitting. It's about thinking, adapting, controlling yourself first before you try to control an opponent. Bruce stands. Then he's learning from the right man. You're one of the best teachers in the world, Cus. Boxing needs that. It needs people who understand it's not just a sport, it's a discipline. He looks back at Mike. Listen to this man, Mike. Everything he teaches you will matter. And remember what you saw today. Not because I won, but because Tommy had the courage to try. That's what makes a fighter. Not winning. Having the courage to step into the arena knowing you might lose. Mike nods again, this time with more certainty. Something about the way Bruce speaks, the calmness, the directness, settles into his young mind like a seed planted in soil. It won't sprout for years. But it's there. Cus and Mike leave. Bruce sits back down on the bench, and for a moment, he allows himself to feel the weight of the day. His body is fine. Barely exerted. But his mind is tired. He thinks about the boy. 6 years old. A boxer in training. He wonders what kind of man Mike Tyson will become. Whether he'll remember this day. Whether the lessons Cus is teaching him will stick, or whether the world will grind them away. Later that evening, in a hotel room across town, Cus D'Amato sits in a chair by the window, looking out at the Los Angeles skyline. Mike is asleep in the next bed, small and curled up under blankets too big for him. Cus thinks about what he saw today. The interception. The wrist lock. The way Bruce moved, not like he was trying to win, but like he was demonstrating a law of physics. Speed defeats power when power can't connect. He thinks about how to integrate that into his training. Not the techniques, exactly. Boxing is boxing. But the principle. Teaching his fighters to not just throw power, but to throw it at the right time, at the right target, with the right setup. To be patient. To wait for the opening rather than forcing it. And he thinks about the boy sleeping next to him. Mike Tyson. 6 years old. A kid from the streets of Brooklyn who's seen more violence and chaos than most adults. A kid who needs structure, discipline, and someone who believes in him. Cus believes. He believes Mike can be great. Not just good. Great. But greatness requires more than talent. It requires the ability to stay calm in chaos. To think while your body is screaming to react. To be water, as Bruce Lee would say. 23 people sat in that VIP section today. 23 people witnessed a 6-year-old boy watch a master of martial arts humble a grown man in 4 seconds. Only one of them understood what that moment would mean. What seeds were being planted. What future was being shaped. If you're still watching this, if you've stayed with this story from beginning to end, then you're someone who understands that the best lessons aren't taught in classrooms. They're taught in moments. Brief encounters between people who are excellent at what they do and people who are humble enough to learn. This channel exists to preserve those moments. To dig up the stories that got buried, that got dismissed as myths or exaggerations, and to show you what really happened. Subscribe now. Not for me. For yourself. Because the next story we tell might be the one that changes how you see yourself, your limits, and what's possible when you combine skill with humility. And if you learned something today, if this story made you think differently about speed, power, or what it means to truly master something, leave a comment. Tell me what lesson you're taking from this. Because that's how we keep these stories alive. Not by watching them disappear into the algorithm, but by discussing them, debating them, and passing them on to the next generation.